So in our last video, we talked about working with formulas in Excel, and we did some pretty basic ones, perimeter, area, pretty easy to enter in. But sometimes our formulas or our calculations can get pretty complicated. And so let's take a look at what we have to do in order to get those entered in there right. And so down here on the bottom, you can see I have this nice formula here. This happens to be the formula you would use if you are trying to figure out the amount of money you would have in an account after 20 years, where you have a 5% interest rate, compounded monthly. You started with $1,500 and you're adding $150 every month to that account. And this will tell you what is in that account after that 20 years. Pretty complicated formula. And Excel actually does this for you much simpler. So you shouldn't have to enter this in. But if you ever have something like this that you are going to enter in, let's talk about how we would have to do that. So important thing to remember as you're doing this is your order of operations. And so a quick reminder of that. First thing in order of operations, it will do everything in the parentheses, and so that's why we already have a lot of parentheses in here. Turns out we actually need more as we type this in, particularly here where I have this long bar division. I need to make sure I have some parentheses around this top part and around the bottom just to make sure it keeps those separate, because I have to do the calculations up here and the calculations down here before I can do that division. And so adding in those extra parentheses makes sure that it will do that in the right order. Okay, and so parentheses, exponents are next on that, and so you'll see we have exponents here that it would do next. We'll also want to make sure we put in parentheses here, because the way it's written, I'm actually going to do that multiplication and then that exponent, and so I need to make sure it does it in that order correctly, and if I don't have some more parentheses in there, it's not going to do that right, because I do the exponents first and then the multiplication, and if I type it in that way, that's how it will do it. It follows that order of operations exactly, much better than we do most of the time. And so you need to make sure, again, extra parentheses in here to make sure it does things right. And so we have that. So we did parentheses and exponents, things like square roots would be in there too. Then we have multiplication and division, and if you remember, those are really on the same level right there. We're doing those the same time, left to right is how we work on that. And then we finally do our addition and subtraction. Again, left to right, addition and subtraction, whatever comes up. So let's start typing this in and see if we can get it to work. Start with the equal sign since we want it to do these calculations. I probably don't need any extras to start off with. That 1500 should be good. Parentheses around this. 1 plus, but now I've got this situation where I have a fraction. Fractions are just division. I want to make sure it's doing that division first. It should, order of operations, but just in case, I'm going to throw in some extra parentheses just to ensure that it's really doing that division first, right? Because it will do whatever is in the parentheses first. So we'll make sure it does that first and then adds it, which it should be, right? And then I need to close off these parentheses here. I also need to make sure I've got a times symbol in there. Tend to forget that. So written this way, right? This is 1500 times all of this stuff. I need to make sure I actually put that times in there, because Excel's not going to know what to do with it otherwise. So make sure you do include those in. So 1500 times this stuff in my parentheses, and then I have this exponent. Well, to enter an exponent, what I want to do is use this caret symbol like this. And because I do have this multiplication in my exponent, I want it to do that multiplication first. I'm going to throw in some more parentheses. So 12 times 20 up there. And let's see, make sure we've got all our parentheses matched up, and I'm actually gonna throw in one more set just to be sure it's gonna include that. And so this is telling me 1500 is times all of the stuff inside of these parentheses. I want to make sure it's doing these calculations first. All right, then we're adding to it this other multiplication, right? So we have 150 times, and I'm going to throw in parentheses around all of this, right, which it already has in this one. But I also need to include some extra ones here around my numerator. So I'm going to throw in another one here, and then I've got to have another one. So a lot of parentheses. It's hard to keep track of, making sure you have all your parentheses that you need. And we're doing 1 plus, and again, I'm going to throw in some extras to make sure it's doing that division first, though it should be anyway. And we're raising all of that to the power of 12 times 20 right there. So more parentheses to make sure it does that multiplication first, right? And so we've got 1 plus that, and all of that's raised to that power right there, and then we're subtracting 1 from that. And that's my numerator right there. And so I can see that's my parentheses for my numerator. Luckily, Excel color codes these. It helps you keep track of them just a little bit better so that you can make sure you have all your parentheses in there right. Now I need the denominator, so I'm dividing by this stuff on the bottom, 0.05 divided by 12. I want it to do that division before it does this other division, and then this entire thing is multiplied by the 150. Now hopefully I've got all of that in there the right way and we're good to go, and if I hit enter it does my calculations and we're good. If you've missed some parentheses or typed something in weird, Excel usually catches on to that, and so it'll bring up a pop-up and maybe it's got an explanation. Okay, I think you did something wrong here. Here's what we suggest instead. And you can go with that, or you can try and fix things on your own if you want, if you've messed things up. But that's how we have to do it. My recommendation is always include more parentheses than you think you need because extra parentheses aren't really going to help as long as you're making sure you've got things grouped together correctly. That's important in this, and making sure that it really is doing things in the order you want, because we don't always need to have parentheses around things when we write things out this way, but because we know the way it's written, right? I know that this 12 times 20 is my exponent because up there it's smaller, it's my exponent, and so I know I need to do that and then use that number as my exponent. But Excel, if I type that in there, it's not going to know that. I don't have the little font, it can't tell the difference anyway, and so I need to make sure I tell it to do that multiplication first. And so, like I say, add in extra parentheses. Usually they won't hurt anything, and most of the time they'll help.